It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump.
Max Landis.
Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible!
Listen to me, I'm older and I'm wise.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is gonna be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Got the first one down. 4 to go with the work week. It is the Sports Rush taking you home on a Monday. We're Fort Wayne's local daily sports fix 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump. He is Adam Lundy. We've got you connected on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Also connecting with you today on Facebook, facebook.com/1380 The Fan. Big hour on the way. Don Fischer will join us coming up at about 5:20. Also, portal news from today. From the weekend. I guess we'd do some catch-up on the portal news, but the big news here locally is that the Mastodons got a replacement for Rasheed Bello.
Yeah, and he looks like an absolute scorer.
Not to put pressure, but a lot of similarities that you're going to see with this young man, Ja'Cory Lipkins. He comes out of D2, and, of course, Rasheed Bello came out of D2, Wisconsin Parkside. He comes from the Division II level. He was a freshman of the year in his conference, averages 15 points per game, shot 41% from three-point range. He's a left-hander like Rasheed Bello. He's the kind of guy that can penetrate, can dish, can create on his own, but also bury the three-point shot. And so it looks like the Dons have got a good one with a 6'2 guard, Ja'Cory Lipkins, joining the Mastodons over the weekend. There was another guy that I was kind of keeping my fingers crossed, but he ended up signing with Northern Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
But he was one of those 43% three-point shooters, very similar, a little stronger. But the Mastodons right now, somebody pointed it out on the text line, and I concur with you that the Mastodons do need a big because they lose two bigs, in Eric Mulder and Jonathan Desjardins, and it was a area where they needed to get stronger and bigger. The whole roster needed to size up. And I was thinking about this over the weekend, that almost every game the Mastodons played this year, 4 of the 5 positions, they were smaller than the guy they were guarding.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. It's a league, the Horizon League, that we've seen kind of transition more and more into the size, especially at the guard position. So
a 5'8" guard that the Dons started, generally guarded by a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", a 6-foot guard that would often be guarded by a guy that was 6'3" or 6'4", and a 6'2" power guard in Jalen Jackson that would probably be guarded by a forward who would be 6'5", 6'6". And then 6'8" and 6'8" for your forward and your center. And often one of those two would be taller than the man that they're being guarded by. But the Dons had the 4th smallest lineup in the entire Division I level. And so they do need to get bigger. They not only need to find a big or two, including a big that can probably step up and be a starter right away and be I don't want to say dominant big man, but a guy that comes in with some credentials. And then you've got to get a couple of 6'6" to 6'8" guys. Now, they do have a freshman coming in at 6'10" that's supposed to be pretty solid. But again, freshmen, you can't count on them. And with the portal, that's where you find the guys that already are plug and play, and you know they can go out and play at the Division I level. And so the Dons probably need to get that center, and they need to get a couple of guys that are the athletic, strong, 6'6", 6'8" type guys. It's kind of funny. You look at rosters and I was trying to figure out roster constructions of some of the teams that are in the Final Four. And the one thing that's consistent with all of these teams that have advanced even into the Elite Eight is they're good rebounding teams. Look at Houston. Tennessee, normally a good rebounding team. But you look at the teams that are in the Final Four, and generally they're going to be good rebounding teams. Auburn dominated on the offensive glass. And the Mastodons just absolutely could not do that, would not do that, because they didn't have a lineup built for it. And so, they've got to find a way to put together a roster that can go get some extra chances. You got to get those extra, especially for trying to come back from behind, because we've seen some of those 8 to 10 point comebacks here in the tournament of late. A lot of them have been keyed because teams have gotten some offensive rebounds.
It's huge. You can't undersell just how much getting another rebound for your team to get another score is. It's huge.
But anyway, also from the portal, the Hoosiers having a big day today as far as visitations.
Yes.
They have got a number of guys on campus. They're expected this evening. Josh Dix, the 6'6" shooter out of Iowa, he is supposed to be making a visit. Just kind of a better Luke Goody type of player. Mm-hmm. You've got Flory Badunga from Kansas. Of course, Indiana was one of the Final Four for Flory when he went to Kansas. Here's the thing I didn't realize, because it was reported over the weekend that he was submitting his name into the portal, but it was reported earlier today that he submitted to the portal with a do not contact tag. Which means he's got a very limited number of schools that he knows who he's interested in, and he is going to talk to those schools. And so a do not contact for Flory Badunga, and one of his first visits is going to be in Bloomington, where he might be there right now.
Interesting, yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but Iowa transfer Josh Dix, he's currently on campus at Creighton, but he will head to Indiana tonight for his fourth college visit since entering the portal, so add him to the list.
I just thought of something kind of funny. You know how they used to always joke about, a realtor was out showing homes to one of the coaches, that's on. Now maybe with NIL, they'll start reporting that realtors are showing properties to Flory Badunga in the Bloomington area. Interesting. I can tell you, just looking at other transfer portal stuff, this is on the women's side of things, but taking a look at Indiana basketball, the women's side, I can tell you 2024 Indiana Miss Basketball, Chloe Sprain is on a visit to Indiana right now. Really?
She played her freshman year at Alabama before entering. She
was at Alabama, and she's actually from Bedford, North Lawrence, which is almost a suburb of Bloomington. I think it's like 25 minutes away or something.
Yep, she posted a picture with the looking eyes emoji and then the home emoji and then a question mark.
Before you text, yes, I know, Damon Bailey was the famous Indiana Hoosier that came from Bedford, North Lawrence. And Chloe Sprain is a good player that would certainly help. But Indiana also took their lumps.
Yeah.
Multiple meetings between Terry Morin and Garzone, and ended up that Garzone is going to enter the transfer portal. So apparently the deal didn't get done.
No. And she was a contributor, no question about it.
Well, they didn't have Garzone. Because they were already somewhat limited offensively.
Right.
She was a huge piece for them. 3-point shooter, somebody that could drive and attack the basket, use her size around the rim. Good passer. Just a multi-talented player. But Indiana looking at Ryan Conwell, who reportedly is visiting, Flory Badunga, Josh Dix. They've got a number of players that they're looking at. Now, Dix last year, 42% from three. Conwell was, 43%?
41.
And Badunga, I don't know what he shot from three, but that doesn't matter. No, he can protect the rim, and he can finish down low. It's funny because he's like 6'8", 6'8.5". He's not the biggest big man, but he is so athletic and has such great leaping ability. And the other thing is he's quick off his feet, because you can get away with 6'8", 6'9" if you're quick off your feet. That's one thing I noticed over the weekend. Some of these good offensive rebounding teams, they just get off the ground so quick.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost scary how quickly they can get up.
You know, some of these guys, they're bending their knees to go up, and the other guy's already 3 feet above the rim, getting a rebound.
Crazy. Speaking of men's college basketball, the Butler Bulldogs are in action, and they were in the college basketball Crown first round, competing against...
Very first game. First game of history of the Crown.
And they got the win.
Wow.
86-84. They were down by 10 or more in the second half, but they come back and get the win over the Utes, 86-84. They'll play the winner of George Washington and Boise State.
And those games will be played throughout the evening.
Yep.
Also tonight, of course, Mastodon's basketball, women's basketball at the Gates Center. They'll take on Cleveland State. I tell you what, if you've missed any of the energy and the fun and the excitement of this group, you need to come out and see them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the place to be.
I mean, they're putting on shows with the way they're playing, the way they're shooting. And then they even add some drama by giving the other team a few points at the beginning.
Let them feel like they have a chance.
That's like, I'll play it at 21, I'll spot you 5. It's like,
it's like a golf handicap.
Why do you come out and not play anywhere near as well in the first quarter or the first half as you do third quarter? Third quarters, they've been blowing teams away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've scored over 50 points in both second halves that they've played so far in the NIT. Of course, both games finished with 87-61 finals over Old Dominion, and on Friday over the Butler Bulldogs. And so Cleveland State, for the 4th time this year at the Gates Center, a 7 o'clock tip. Hope you make it out there. Really bummed that we're not doing a radio broadcast. In fact, we were going to take the show out there and do the entire show from the Gates Center prior to doing the basketball game tonight if we got the green light. But,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been huge value, huge marketing value, because you'd have had basically 3-4 hours of promotional airtime to promote the program, the success of the program, coming out and buying tickets. But that... Yeah, we would have I'd have just gone over there and start the broadcast at 4 o'clock, do the game at 7. But no radio broadcast tonight, so you got to get there in person.
Absolutely.
By the way, do you know anybody that that doesn't go to a game because they'd rather sit at home and listen on the radio?
Rather sit at home and listen on the radio than go to a game. I don't think so. I know some people that'll be like, oh, I'd rather watch at home than go.
Yeah, sometimes you get the I'd rather watch than
radio,
go.
I don't know.
But I want to sit and listen to it? No. Radio, it fills the void with people. But the other thing it does, it reaches people who are non-connected fans. Like ESPN Plus is going to attract the people that have already subscribed, that are already fans, that already know where to go to watch the game. But if a game's on the radio, like on 1380, then what happens is a lot of people are just turning on the sports station, let's see what's going on tonight, let's see what's on the sports dial. We're the only sports station. So anybody who's a sports fan is going to our position on the dial, and then they're like, oh, it's Mastodon's basketball. Oh, it's, the WNIT. Oh, it's the...
Grade 8.
Grade 8, yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, you knew that off the top of your head.
No, I didn't.
Nah.
I have to admit, I keep forgetting.
A couple quick texts that came in. Somebody said Ryan Conwell, former Indiana State Sycamore. Yep, he did play for them. Yes.
Yep.
Somebody else can also said we can assume IU is getting the 7-footer. That's the coach's son, referring to DeVries.
Well, he's not 7 feet.
I didn't think he was 7 feet either.
He's like 6'7", 6'8".
But yes, we can pretty much assume that.
But yeah, The only question with DeVries is, will he get the medical red shirt? And the question's still out on Luke Goody.
Yep.
Will he get a medical red shirt?
We'll see.
You know what? We'll address that.
Oh.
About Luke Goody with Don Fischer. He's going to be our guest coming up next, because it is another edition and the final edition of this football basketball season for our 15 minutes with Fisch. Legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster Don Fischer joins the Sports Rush next on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Crump, along with Adam Lundy. And coming up this week, we've got a lot of Pacers basketball. In fact, on Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, we've got Pacers basketball right here on the radio. Tonight, the Pacers taking on the Sacramento Kings. 7 p.m. tip-off. We'll join the pregame show starting at about 6:30. And on Wednesday, the Pacers will take on Charlotte. That game will be at Gainbridge Fieldhouse with a 7 o'clock tip. 6:30 will be the pregame show right here. And, of course, on Saturday and Monday, we're back to NCAA Final Four coverage. 4 number 1 seeds going at it on Saturday. It should be a lot of fun. And, of course, we'll talk plenty about that as we continue on with the Sports Rush. But right now we've got to talk some IU because it is our weekly visit with the legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster of the Indiana Hoosiers, Mr. Don Fischer. We call it our 15 Minutes with Fisch, presented as always by Hoopy Insurance Services. Well, Don, it's been kind of a busy week for Indiana basketball, but not on the positive side as players have left the program. I'm not sure we're shocked by this. Anytime you have a coaching change, you're going to see somewhat of a turnover of your roster. But the concerning part, I guess, is for Indiana fans is that right now the roster totally starts from scratch pending whatever happens with the medical red shirt for Luke Goody.
Right. That's the big issue right now. And the workload that Darian DeVries has got at this point is pretty big, to say the least. Not a single player from last year's ball club, with the exception of Goody as a possible, because he's looking for a medical red shirt that he may not get, primarily because the year that he missed most of the season, he did play at the end of that year, including an NCAA tournament game. Which you're supposed to, if you're not supposed to come back on a roster, or at least this is the way it has been in the past. You're not supposed to be able to end your season with that guy playing basketball and get another medical redshirt year. So he came back, and I think he played maybe 8 to 10 games. 10 games, I think, is what he did play that last part of his sophomore year, is the year he was hurt. And without question, there is a question as to whether or not he's going to get eligibility for a medical red shirt. So we'll see if that takes place. But other than that, Indiana has no one left on the roster, at least from last year. They do have Trent Sisley coming in from Montverde Academy, and former player at Heritage Hills High School, has spent his final senior season at Montverde Academy playing with a really talented team down there. But here's the thing about it. Darian DeVries has been working his tail off ever since he got the gig here at Indiana. I went down and saw him last, I think it was Wednesday, this past Wednesday, briefly. Went into the offices. There was nobody in there but him. There's nobody with anything on their desk but him. And because he's obviously working on putting together a staff as well. I guess there were some of those folks that showed up at the Indiana High School State Championship games on Saturday, because Darian was there watching high school play. Obviously Jeffersonville winning the 4A state, or the 4A championship, and then some of the other teams as well. But this guy's working his tail off. There's no doubt about it. He did not have time to go to lunch with me that day, because that's the first thing I asked him. Want to go to lunch? And he goes, he said, I'd love to, but I can't. He says, call me next week. I imagine he'll be just as busy this week as he was last week, because it is a chore to build a roster from scratch like this, and that's basically what he's doing.
The coaching staff, of course, you know, that I think that's got to be step number one, because you need coaches to host. You need coaches to be working the portal. I mean, the portal, I guess, is like 1,300 plus right now.
Right.
And we should disclose, too, that we are recording this Monday morning. Maybe Indiana's got a roster of 4 people by now, because there are a number of visits that are planned in the next day or two. But at this point, they still have nobody. But coaching staff, is there any rumors? Are you hearing any names? Is there expectations of any announcements coming soon? What's the buzz there?
my understanding, based on the roster or based on the staff itself, is that there will be no announcement made about who is on his staff. Obviously, there's rumors out there, and I'm not going to pass any of those on because I don't know if they're factual. But supposedly they're not going to announce any of the staff until they've got the entire staff put together, and then they'll put out a release with all those names on it. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's gotten at least a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, and probably more than that at this juncture that he's got. And I think he had some people with him at the IHSA state finals on Saturday. I don't know who those folks were. I didn't see anybody write that or see anything about it. All I can tell you is this guy works his tail off, and he is doing so because he has to. There's no question that he's got to do this. The good news is that he does have basically 2 players that will be on the roster that we know about. One being his son, Tucker, who was the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year 2 years in a row before they went to West Virginia, got hurt last year in I think the 7th or 8th game of the season, and then he went on to get they're looking for a medical redshirt for him to join his dad here at Indiana, and I don't think there's any question he'll get that, and he will be on the roster. And then, of course, Trent Sisley, who announced for Indiana last fall, and obviously he is definitely coming after talking with DeVries as well. So they've got 2 players right now that they can count on. The rest of the roster is still up in the air.
Of course, Flory Badunga has left Kansas, and he's a local product and scheduled for a visit. That would certainly fill one void as far as having some type of a big on the roster.
Yep, there's no doubt. This young man was recruited heavily by Indiana under the old regime and obviously opted for Kansas. Went there last year and had a decent year as a freshman. Played quite a bit. I don't think he was a big scorer or anything like that. We all know that he's got the talent to be really an outstanding player. He's very athletic, strong, physical type player. But whether he's going to come to Indiana or not, we'll find that out here in the next few days, hopefully. And there are definitely some other players out there that they're looking at as well out of the transfer portal. I just don't know at this juncture who those players might be. Again, there's all kinds of rumors, and I don't like to pass on any rumors and things like that because I think it just gets you in trouble.
Oh, come on, Don. It's the last show. We can throw all the rumors. We can throw all the rumors out there that got to last us all summer long.
Well, trust me, I understand that. But in my position, I'm not doing it.
All right, so let's talk football because that is a roster that's pretty well set. Now, Indiana loses their top 2 quarterbacks from last year, but they have got a pretty good one that's come in to take over as QB1.
There's no question. Fernando Mendoza is a really good quarterback out of California. Played his college football there last year. He was one of the guys that showed me on his highlight film that he can flat out run. In addition to throwing the football with great accuracy, those kinds of things. I went to 2 practices this past week. I went down to the Wednesday and rather the Thursday and Saturday practices that they had. I was very impressed with him. I'm really impressed with how Curt Cignetti has his kids practicing. These guys and the interesting thing is last year when I went to practices, I was looking to see if guys understood what he was asking them to do and I went to 10 of their practices last year. I think I told you that before. Mm-hmm. I was really impressed with what I saw. This year, it's even better in the sense that there are so many players out here that have helped these younger guys or the guys that have come from other programs to understand what's going on, and they're not missing anything at this juncture. Their practices are just like last year, very orderly. There's a system to it. The coaches coach. Cignetti watches. He goes in and dictates a little bit every now and then, but he lets his coaches coach. And the practices are bang, 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 bang. There's no dead time. They just do a tremendous job, and they're only out there for about an hour and 50 minutes each of those practice sessions. So nothing has changed in that regard. There's a lot of talent on this team once again. I think they're still looking for a couple of positions to get a couple of more players involved there, and there's another transfer portal opportunity, I think, here coming up in the next month or so. So there are still a couple of places where they're trying to fill some holes, but for the most part, this looks like a really good football team again, and it's going to have to be because their schedule this year is a little bit tougher.
What are you hearing about Indiana's NIL situation for football? Because we hear basketball has a very good, comfortable NIL, and I'm not sure how IU does it, how it's split. We're hearing stories about Nate Oates, and he's got some displeasure about Alabama basically funding football over basketball. But with the football program, because all of a sudden now Indiana's become a trendy pick for some of these guys in the portal, where before you got the guys that didn't demand a whole lot. You know, they were kind of, right. It was a different type of player. Now you're competing for higher level players. They're going to cost more. How does Indiana compete as far as NIL funding?
Well, I don't think there's any question that they can compete with just about anybody in the country, and I know that's saying something because you've got the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, all these schools that have tons of money from a football perspective, and I don't think Indiana takes a back seat now, and the reason they don't is because Scott Dolson and his staff very early on, when NIL first came into existence, they had a plan going in. They put forth a plan from the very beginning, before NIL actually came into existence, knowing that it was going to be a factor. They started putting that plan in place a long time ago. And the one thing that changes now is the revenue sharing aspect of it, which will come into play this year. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you how that's going to factor in. I just don't know. But I've heard Scott talk many times, and at this juncture, he's not worried about the NIL for football or basketball because they have such a great situation in regard to making that early decision to get something put up there on the board, so to speak, to make sure that they were going to have enough money to take care of both sports.
Don Fischer joining us for a final time with this 2024-2025 season. And so, Don, we're going to give you some free time on Mondays. What's ahead for you now? What do you do in the summer? Are you on a yacht somewhere? What's your give me your summer plans.
Well, trust me, there is no yacht. And basically, I play a lot of golf in the summertime. It's my fun thing to do. It's my off-season thing to do. I'm no longer having to do shows on the radio outside of during football and basketball season. So I'm semi-retired, you could say, at some point, because my job is primarily doing the games for both Indiana football and basketball, and doing obviously these shows on Monday. And it's so much fun for me at this time of year because I get to do what I really like to do, and that's I love to play golf, and I play a lot of golf, as you know.
Yep. By the way, you mentioned something earlier. I just got to follow up, talking about just walking into the basketball offices to see Coach DeVries. Was that something that ever happened with Coach Woodson?
I can't say. I'm not saying that I couldn't walk into basketball offices, because I could, and I did early on. It just didn't happen very much as the last couple of years have gone by. I don't want to get into that, Brett. You know, that's just kind of a touchy subject. So.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's kind of interesting, the trail. Dane Fife won't talk much about anything either. So
I know.
Hey, Don, I hope you and Coach DeVries get along wonderfully, because I think Coach DeVries is going to have a lot of success down there, and wish you the best of success on the golf course this summer.
Well, I'll take all that kind of luck I can get, because my golf scores here in the last several years have kind of slid downward, if you know what I mean.
Well, good. Maybe it's time for me to invite you to Fort Wayne to take a round of golf, because you would have kicked my butt any other time. My game slid a long time ago, Don. But
no, I understand. I play golf now just for the fun of it.
Yeah. And for some reason, no matter how bad it goes, you go back out and it's just as much fun the next time.
It truly is. There's no doubt about it.
It's a crazy game. All right, Don, we have enjoyed you all season long. Appreciate it. Enjoy the summer. Look forward to next fall.
I appreciate it, Brett. Thanks for having me, and obviously best of luck to everybody up there in Fort Wayne.
Appreciate it. That is Don Fischer joining us here on the Sports Rush. And, of course, our 15 Minutes with Fisch, always presented by Hoopy Insurance Services all season long. If you need any kind of insurance needs, be sure you talk to an independent agent like Hoopy Insurance Services. Yeah, they're going to be able to shop different companies, different policies, and find the best rates, the best coverage for you. That is Hoopy Insurance Services. All right, we've got to keep the show moving, so we're going to take a break. We'll be back. It's Monday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy. Don't forget tonight, plenty of time for you to still get out to the Gate Center and take in women's basketball. Purdue Fort Wayne against Cleveland State, Part 4. It's the fourth battle for these two teams, conference rivals, coming up tonight. Mastodons have won 2 of the previous 3, including an 83-65 win 3 weeks ago to the day down in Indianapolis as part of the Horizon League Championships. And the Mastodons will try to eliminate Cleveland State, who had a wild come-from-behind victory to defeat Duquesne in their game at Cleveland State on Friday night, while the Mastodons were dominating Butler. Mastodons won 2 games in the WNIT, and both of them by 87-61 scores. And the Mastodons, who are the top-ranked team according to the net rankings, still remaining in the field, will take on Cleveland State tonight. 7 o'clock tip. Tickets are available. Get them at the door. Get there early. Let's pack the place tonight. Had almost 1,000 people in Game 1. Had over 1,000 people for Game 2. Now Game 3, and the Mastodons again with a home game. And I will just tell you, if you want to have the Mastodons at home for the semifinals against Buffalo, which they already know who their opponent will be since Buffalo defeated Rutgers yesterday. If you want them at home, the best way to do it, hack the Gates Center. Because it's all a dollars and cents thing. If you can generate the revenue to justify the expense, then the Mastodons can bid on getting the home game and perhaps outbid Buffalo and stay at home through the next round of the tournament. They deserve to be at home. The question is, are they willing to pay to be at home?
You'd love to see it. I'd love to see well, first of all, I'd love to see them get the win over Cleveland State tonight, and then I want to see them at home again against Buffalo.
Do you gamble on a road game to save your money for a championship?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a tough.
You can't tell anybody that. Yeah. You don't dare tell anybody that. But
oh man.
Or do you take a chance at riding the wave and trying to get big enough crowds to justify the expense of the next round? Because each round generally costs more than the round before. That's usually the way these tournaments work. Yeah. And then at some point, I don't even know if it's about the bid. The championship might just be awarded because, again, you're dealing with television as well. They've got to be able to have what they need for their television broadcast. Now, if you look through the WNIT and look at some of the teams that are still remaining in the field, you've got Buffalo, who would be the Mastodons' next opponent. But then also still remaining in the field, you've got teams like North Dakota State. You've got, who else is in there? Louisiana Tech. Mm-hmm. For some reason. Oh, it's our internet. You've got Louisiana Tech, Illinois State.
Yep.
Obviously, they've got a bigger arena in Normal, Illinois. Or are they in Bloomington? Bloomington Normal. It's like one community. You've got North Dakota State is at home. Illinois State is at home. North Dakota State is hosting Troy. Illinois State is hosting Louisiana Tech. Mastodons hosting Cleveland State. Those are the games tonight. All 3 games, well, at least 2 of them are on ESPN Plus. Doesn't list a TV broadcast for Troy, North Dakota State. So semifinals are expected to be played on Wednesday, but maybe they'll push it back to Thursday. But the only problem is they push it back to Thursday. Well, I guess they don't really have a conflict. I was thinking You've got the NIT, the men's NIT. When is that? That's being played Tuesday, Thursday, right?
The men's NIT?
Or is that what days are the men's NIT?
I gotcha. The championship of the NIT is on Thursday, April 3rd. I believe semifinals are on Tuesday.
That's why they might not want to play the semifinals of the WNIT on the same night as they play the championship of the men's NIT.
Mm-hmm.
That might be why they're trying to shoot for Wednesday, but it would make it a very quick turnaround for the Mastodons to have to jump on a bus tomorrow, get hotels, get bus trip, get a bus arranged, everything, if they have to go to Buffalo. Makes it much easier if you let the other team deal with all that.
Yeah.
But first thing is you got to win tonight.
You do.
You can worry about that after 9 o'clock tonight. Got to be Cleveland State. Cleveland State's going to be the team coming in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. You know, the last time these two teams met, it was the Mastodons who had the chip.
Yeah.
Because they got beat on their home floor. Their only home loss this season came to Cleveland State. And Cleveland State dominated the fourth quarter, which is something the Mastodons have usually done well, is to play really good basketball in the second half. And Cleveland State came from behind. They were down 4 points in the fourth quarter, ended up winning it by 9. And so Cleveland State's going to have a little bit of a chip after the Dons dominated that game at the Horizon League Championship, or the semifinals of the Horizon League Championships. So it'll be a heck of a battle tonight at the Gates Center.
Yeah, and I still think that the Purdue Fort Wayne women will want to protect their home court after they did give up that win to Cleveland State earlier in the season. So, yeah, I think it'll be two spirited teams and a great matchup at Gates tonight.
By the way, great state finals on Saturday down in Indianapolis, at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
Of course, all part of a big weekend down in Indy with the the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 being in town at Lucas Oil Stadium. And then at Gainbridge Fieldhouse on Saturday, you had the IHSA State Championships. Congratulations to the Manchester Squires. They are the Class 2A state champions. Got the win Saturday, so Manchester claims their first ever state title in any sport.
Awesome.
Huge win. But, you know, the game of the day clearly was the Class 4A championship. And what a battle between these two teams, Jeffersonville and Fishers. Now, I tell you what, I saw Fishers play, and I thought that team was the perfect high school team. Athleticism, a lot of ability to finish at the rim. They had a 6'7" big. They had guards that could really shoot it from a long way. And I didn't see how anybody was going to beat Fishers, and they came in undefeated, and they'd won like 47 in a row going into Saturday night state championship in overtime. Jeffersonville knocks off Fishers 67-66, and Jeffersonville is your Class 4A state champion.
Some great hoops down at Gainbridge over the weekend.
Yeah, I think the total margin of the 4 games was like 11 points.
Good stuff.
The total margin.
That's crazy.
Every game was somewhat exciting. Good crowd, good competitive basketball. Really great day for the IHSA in basketball, and unfortunately, we didn't have a team down there to talk about.
Nope, but still love to see it around the state.
We'll take a break, come back. Monday edition of the Sports Rush continues next on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Mastodons, by the way, did pick up a commitment over the weekend from Ja'Cory Lipkins out of D2 in Charleston. He was a freshman this past season, 15 points per game, freshman of the year in his conference, shoots 41% from 3. Really electric with the basketball, can create on his own, can hit the three-point shot. Very Rashid Bello-like. So good replacement, good start out of the portal for the Mastodons. Still got to get those big guys, those 6'6 plus type of guys, so they can start to get some rebounds.
Yep, definitely.
Rebounding was the Achilles heel this past season. You just can't compete if you don't have the 6'6", 6'9 guys. It's basketball. Not necessarily a short man's game.
No.
Nothing against the short men, but it's a big man's game.
It is. Hey, we got a text correction we want to get to real quick.
Yes, I know. So Manchester did win a state championship in baseball, but it's their first one in their history in basketball. That has to be deleted. Now that comment will have to be deleted from the podcast. Just made Adam go through extra work.
Thanks.
All right, so that just about wraps it up here for a Monday edition of the Sports Rush. Big night for IU. They've got some big studs coming on campus, and they've got to close some deals, start building their roster. Among them, Flory Badunga. Thanks to Don Fischer for our final episode of 15 Minutes with Fisch. Taking you home on a Tuesday tomorrow, 4 to 6, with the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.